is that on each segment of this, there would be a summary sentence or something like that that would open up and give you something for that segment. But you're talking about just for the rules as a whole, is that right?
I'm talking about what's printed out for new people that are coming in on the rules of decorum. And if we inundate everybody with the whole thing that's on the website, they're not going to be able to comprehend in the time allowed to really digest it, you know. So if they want more information on the rules of decorum, maybe there's a link to the full document.
Okay,
On the handouts that are given every week.
Well, I think just FYI, just for me, just so you all will know, the court can ultimately make this decision, but again, I believe we are here because there's a question of how much information and clarity for what it is that should be happening, and as a result of that, I'm not going to suggest less. So we're not doing less. We're doing more because it needs to be more clear to people, and I do believe that the general public has the wherewithal and the ability to digest the information. The information will be available via website. If they come and participate in the Commissioners Court meeting for the first time and they see these rules right before the meeting starts, yes, it may take some time for them to listen to the meeting and digest these, but I believe at the next Commissioners Court meeting, they'll be more informed. So I believe that we have people here in Smith County who can digest that information and who are smart enough to be able to say, I can go back and review this and understand. And what I'm trying to do as the chair of this committee is saying, how can we make this document communicate better to those who will be participating in the governmental process that is the Commissioners Court meeting?
Richard Blake. I think we could chase a rabbit, you know, way off into the field with links, and I mean, I understand the scientific nature of Bob and his suggestions, but back to why this committee was formed in the first place. It was basically access to the court, and then how and what we can say when we have that access. And so I'm in favor of focusing on that, and you know, once that's in place, then I'm even in favor of a committee, whether it's this one, be a standing committee that doesn't have to meet regularly, but just can address, you know, tweaking and that sort of thing. But I think we should right now just focus on the document and as I said last meeting, procedural and content. You know, what's the procedure, and then what is the actual wording that some of us believe, you know, was a violation of freedom of speech. So if we deal with those issues, then I think we'll accomplish what at least I intended when I suggested we form a committee.
Sure, and what I want to do is right now what's happening, and it's good, I mean, but by way of, this is a reflection potentially of what a meeting could look like when there are lots of different opinions as to what should be happening and how it should be happening, but there's going back and forth between a body, I'm not a body, but it could be like that. So there could be some of you here right now who are totally disinterested in everything that I'm saying with Mr. Brewer, right? That could be happening. But you would have to sit here and go through that for as long as we went through this, because Mr. Brewer is a concerned member who has every right, as many of you would believe you would have. And so what we're trying to do is facilitate that balance. And this is a good example of that. How do we deal with the issue that's on the table, i.e. maybe an agenda item, where there's someone who has a concern, and then there are people who don't necessarily have a concern. That's the balance, and what we're trying to get to is what is the optimum opportunity to strike that balance. So we're not going to get it 100% right, because somebody's not going to be interested and somebody will be. But that is a good visualization of what could possibly happen if we don't have a structure where we communicate some level of, we can only deal with this for so long. right? If me and Mr. Brewer keep going back and forth for the next 30 minutes, somebody's gonna get up and leave. Somebody's gonna say, hey, can y'all just take that to the side? But we can't, because it's a meeting issue. That's just thank you, Mr. Brewer, I know you didn't try to do that, but that kind of illustrates what could happen if we don't focus, right? And not that he's not focused, but that we have a particular thing that we're working on today. So with that being said, let's go to the procedures, right? So some of the things that came about when I was looking at different organizations related to meetings, I saw several of them, and I'm not giving a particular number, there was more than 8, I can tell you that, who actually communicated something like this. And so I'm throwing this out for conversation. Request to appear before the body must be made to the appropriate member prior to 4:00 p.m. on the Monday before the scheduled meeting. Okay, so a lot of the organizations, some of them had, kind of like we have now, they didn't say that you gotta, turn it in at X amount of time. Like if today in Smith County, if you want to participate in the meeting in terms of just general comment regarding an agenda item, you can walk in the door that morning before the meeting, before court start, and you can fill that information out and then submit it to the appropriate staff person. There are a lot of agencies who have it online and fill in the blank online and just in their information saying that information needs to come and be present and available actually the day before the meeting. Okay, so that's a thought, because we talk about, again, procedures for how we deal with information that handles the meeting that day. So what are your thoughts on that? We like it the way it is, that's our preference, and we want to just say, let's move on past that, or do we want to say, yes, we need a more procedure where people need to take the time and communicate that information so that when court starts, there is no concern about someone didn't get heard, they did not get their information or get a chance to address the court. Any thoughts on that?
I think if you do allow them to fill it out online, you also have to allow them to fill it out when they get here too.
Right, it's both places. It's not so much that's the filling it out. It's the time frame in which it must be turned in. That's really the
But
key.
allowing them to fill it out online, maybe, some people show up like a minute or two late. Well, it's too late. I mean, if they're not in the judge's hands, basically when the meeting starts, as of right now, then they're not allowed to speak. So this could give them more time to just fill it out the day before or whenever.
But what you're saying is, what you're saying is that the forms would have to be presented to the day before in any instance. So what Casey is saying, someone coming in that morning and saying, I want to participate, would not be allowed to do so.
Right, because
based on what
those
you're
organizations have in their rules that 4:00 on the Monday before the meeting, or whatever day there is, everybody doesn't meet on Monday.
No.
The day before the meeting, that information is in, because it's all gathered and submitted, so when the presiding officer gets to court, he or she is not trying to figure out, they have the information there ready to move forward with. So again, we're talking about procedures. That's one of the things that, as I was looking at the different documents, that was out there. That's not currently our process. I think you're aware of that. But what are our thoughts on that being a part of our process or not?
Well, my opinion would be both. If having a deadline for online submission request, I wouldn't have a problem, but I think people ought to be able to walk in the door right before the meeting, fill out the form, and be able to speak. So that was.
Okay.
I think it should stay the way it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Rudy right now. I'm supposed to step forward.
Hand up. You should get to a microphone though, so either one, doesn't matter.
I just wanted to share that, if you added that restriction as you outlined it, that would be a step in the opposite direction of the intention of this body, to my understanding, because we're trying to make it easier and more convenient for the public to come and interact, and the online idea has great merit, and a deadline before the meeting is reasonable for the online because it's got to get printed and get into their hands. But as far as, a lot of times it's the last minute when I realize I could even come to one of the meetings, and that would almost exclude me from being able to participate if I had to be a day ahead of time to put my name on the list.
Okay.